The All-Star break is over. You know how Fox had that slogan, "This one counts"? Yeah, well, that could be the theme for every game the rest of the year. All 60 of them coming into this past weekend. Starting with a 3-game series in Cincinnati with the Reds. Let's just say they're going to need a lot of improvement if they want to be taken seriously. We'll talk about that next. Before we go any further, I'm going on record saying that as of time of taping, Colby Rasmus is still playing for the Cardinals. That said, the Cards dropped 2 out of 3 from the Cincinnati Reds. Starting Friday night, the Cards had a 5-4 lead going into the bottom of the 9th and lose it 6-5. Of all people to ruin it for us, Brandon Phillips. His 2-run homer cost us what would have been a huge come-from-behind win. But the underlying factor in this loss is exactly how Tony La Russa utilized his pitching. He pulled Jake Westbrook after 5 innings. His only mistakes were the 2 solo home runs he gave up to Chris Heisey. Outside of that, he scattered 3 hits, struck out 5, and only threw 72 pitches. Now here's where it gets dicey. He uses 2 pitchers to get through the 6th, 3 in the 7th, another 1 in the 8th, and the closer, Fernando Salas, in the 9th. To go off subject for a minute, never, ever, 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 ever put Trevor Miller in there under any circumstance ever again. Granted, Mitchell Boggs gets into a little trouble thanks to a throwing error by David Freese in the 6th, and Ryan Theriot can't make a play right after that. But if you're going in there to get out of a jam, you don't give up a ground rule double to Joey Votto to give them the lead. Anyhow, regarding the bullpen, or pitching in general, it doesn't matter if we make any kind of moves to bolster either the rotation or the pen. If TLR can't utilize them correctly, our pitching staff won't be effective at all. Especially if you're going to use 8 pitchers in a game to get that perfect matchup. All you're going to do is burn out these guys by early August, and you'll be out an upcoming outfielder, if you believe any of the trade rumors out there. The Cardinals did come back twice in this one, as they scored 3 of the 6, starting off with back-to-back hits by Pujols and Holiday. Then, Berkman gets walked to load him up. A couple of groundouts tie things up. Add a throwing error by Brandon Phillips. Then pinch hitter Tony Cruz comes through with the go-ahead hit. Going into the 7th, after Reds reliever Aroldis Chapman walks trade bait Colby Rasmus, Albert goes yard, and we have the lead. Anyone out there remember when Chapman was supposed to be the greatest pitcher to come out of Cuba? Well, from what I've seen so far, instead of looking like El Duque in his prime, he's looking a lot more like Rene Oroca. As we go to the bottom of the 9th with 2 out, and Brandon Phillips, all cocky as hell, wins it for them. Naturally, he knows absolutely nothing about being classy, does he? Oh well. Moving on to Saturday night. Cards hold on to win this one 4-1. Defensively, not so good. 3 errors tonight. Usually that spells imminent doom, but Carp was able to keep it together long enough to get the win, his 5th on the season. He went 8 strong innings, giving up a run on 7 hits, walking 3, and striking out 7. But the key for him is he's got to keep it together whenever something doesn't go his way, especially when he doesn't get that call or someone other than himself commits an error. As for the scoring, Joey Votto gets an RBI single, scoring Drew Stubbs in the 3rd. But the only offense the Cardinals needed was once again delivered by the Mang. Albert Pujols comes through in the 5th with a 3-run homer, his 20th, off Bronson Arroyo. This also put Albert in exclusive company. He becomes only the 3rd player in baseball history to hit at least 20 home runs in his first 11 seasons. Before him, only Eddie Matthews and Frank Robinson accomplished this feat. John Jay gets an RBI single in the 8th for the 4th run, and Fernando Salas saved it in the 9th, striking out former Cardinal Edgar Renteria to end it and get his 17th save of the year. Moving on to Sunday afternoon, the Cardinals put out a dismal effort offensively and lost this game 3-1. They got an early 1-0 lead off a deep solo shot to dead center by Lance Berkman. His league-leading 25th, by the way. Outside of that, nothing. Jaime Garcia was going right along till the 6th inning when Skip Schumacher fields a ground ball by Joey Votto. He makes a bad throw to Ryan Theriot, trying to get the force and turn the double play. Theriot initially catches the toss, but has to jump off the base. The call was a close one, but unfortunately, after reviewing the tape over and over again, Zach Cozart was safe. Theriot totally loses it, bumps into second base umpire Mike Mushlinski, and it's immediately tossed. After the ejection, there's now runners at first and second with 1 out. Garcia strikes out Brandon Phillips, but Tony Cruz can't hold on to the ball, and both runners advance. Follow that up with another wild pitch with Johnny Gomes at the plate. Cozart scores, and we're tied. Next inning, Miguel Cairo triples to the right center gap. Then, he scores on an RBI single by Ryan Hannigan. Perhaps this might have been one of those instances where you pulled Garcia after the 6th, when he was starting to run into problems. Lance Lynn does come in the 8th. He gives up a solo shot to Zach Cozart. First major league hit at that. Cardinals couldn't do anything with the heart of their order up in the 9th against Coco Cordero, and that was it. I just checked. Colby Rasmus is still a Cardinal. The worst part about this series, both of the Cardinal losses this weekend came after blowing the lead at some point. Something they've done in 27 of the 45 games they've lost this year. Imagine this. If they could have held on to leads in just half of those games, half. Think about how far we'd be ahead in the standings right now. Instead, we got this quagmire. The Cardinals are now half a game behind Milwaukee and tied for second with Pittsburgh of all teams. The Cards move on to New York for a 3-game series starting tomorrow night with the Pond Scum Mets. They could be considered the Ponzi Scum Mets with what they're going through right now. While Citi Field hasn't been too kind to the Redbirds, the Mets are having some possible legal problems, like being involved with Bernie Madoff. They've already traded K-Rod to the Brewers, and Jose Reyes' name has popped up in a lot of trade discussions this year. They could be right for the taking, and to get things turned around for us. Of course, there's a lot of history between the two teams. For example, the dogfights for the NL East Championship back in the 1980s. Of course, there's seat cushion night, where Tommy Herr hits a walk-off grand slam back in 1987, to the postseason matchups of the 2000s, to finally beating them on a Yachty 3-run shot in the 2006 NLCS, and Adam Wainwright striking out Carlos Beltran looking with the bases loaded to clinch it, up to that 20-inning marathon last year. Like I said, lots of history between the two teams. So, my question of the day. Do you still consider the Mets to be one of our main rivals? Let me know what you guys think. Submit your answers, comments, questions, responses, or anything else in the comment box below. Subscribe on YouTube, follow me on Twitter, and check out www.i70baseball.com. Cards and Mets this week. Colby is still a Cardinal, time to regain first place, and life will be good. Till next time, everyone, go Cards!